My name is Evelyn, and I live in a quiet part of Maine now. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time in a long time, I've started wondering again whether I made the right choices, whether walking away from my past was a form of healing or just another layer of heartbreak I buried beneath routine. I never imagined I'd be sitting here, trembling over a message from a boy who used to call me Mom. His name is Aiden. He's 30 now, I think. I had him when I was just 20, too young, too naive, still holding on to the last breath of my teenage years. His father, Darren, was my high school sweetheart. We married at 22, just after graduating from college. Darren came from old money, the kind that clung to legacy and power. He never wanted me to work, said it was beneath us, so I stayed home. I made our house warm, I raised our son. I loved them both so deeply it made me blind. Aiden was everything to me, my reason for waking up, the quiet rhythm of my days. I never once imagined that I would grow old without him in my life. But 10 years ago, that future cracked wide open. I found out Darren had been cheating on me with a woman half my age, a junior analyst at his firm. But what shattered me wasn't just the betrayal. It was that Aiden, my own son, had known. He was 15 at the time. He kept it a secret. Darren bought his silence with gadgets and praise, and Aiden accepted. Worse, he thought it was exciting. All the kids think it's cool to have a young stepmom, he once admitted with a shrug. I later learned that Darren had taken Aiden on trips with her, ski resorts, long weekends. He lied to me, saying it was bonding time, just father and son. But she was there too. My husband and son were playing family with someone else while I folded laundry and made dinner alone. When the divorce came, I hoped Aiden would stay with me. I fought for him. I begged. But he chose Darren. He chose the mansion, the cars, the lifestyle, the glamour. He didn't even want to visit me afterward. I reached out to him when he turned 18. No reply. After that, I stopped trying. Years passed, slowly. I mourned him the way someone mourns the living. Eventually, I met someone new, Michael, a gentleman who had 2 daughters of his own. We built something small and quiet, something kind. I remarried, and just days after our wedding, I found out I was pregnant. I was 46 and terrified. The pregnancy nearly killed me. I was in labor for hours and bled far too much. But in the end, I gave birth to a beautiful girl. I wanted so badly to tell Aiden he had a sister. I imagined us reconnecting, holding hands in a hospital room, starting over. But he didn't want that. He never reached out. And so I stopped imagining. I moved forward. I gave myself fully to the life I had, not the one I'd lost. Until last week. It started with a series of messages on Facebook. From him, Aiden. He said he missed me. He wanted to meet. I didn't know what to feel. After a decade of silence, after so many birthdays and holidays he ignored, he suddenly wanted to talk? I read the messages again and again, but my heart didn't stir the way I thought it would. I felt nothing. Or maybe not nothing, just a cold, distant ache, like a wound I'd sewn shut was suddenly threatening to rip open. Everyone around me, my parents, my husband, they think I should meet him. They call it closure. They say he's still my son. But they don't understand what it was like to be left behind, to be abandoned by the one person you loved most, the one who shared your blood. I don't know what he wants from me. Maybe it's guilt, maybe curiosity, maybe he just wants something I can give. But whatever it is, it frightens me. I'm not the woman I was when he left. I've grown older, quieter, more cautious. Part of me wants to know why. Why now? What changed? But another part of me is afraid of hearing his voice, afraid of seeing indifference in his eyes, afraid of learning that I still don't matter. I've thought about meeting him in a public place, somewhere open, somewhere safe, just in case. I won't bring him to my home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Am I wrong for feeling this way? I ask myself that every day. Am I a bad mother for not rushing to him with open arms? I don't know anymore. All I know is that my heart is tired, and some wounds never really heal. And maybe, just maybe, some doors shouldn't be reopened. It's hard to describe the ache that follows you when you've been abandoned by your own child. People around me mean well, they always do. My mother says I should meet Aiden, that closure matters, that maybe I need to hear him out to finally stop carrying this invisible weight. Even Michael, my husband, who's always been my safe place, thinks I should give it a try. But none of them know what it feels like to be shattered quietly, piece by piece, over years of silence. Would hearing Aiden's voice give me clarity? Would knowing what he was thinking back then help me sleep easier? Maybe, maybe not. I've gone over every word I'd say to him if I did see him again. But I still don't know if I want to sit across from the boy, now a man, who once chose wealth and comfort over me, and who now wants something. I don't know if I could hear his reasoning without hearing the echoes of the 15-year-old who turned his back on me. Some say I should listen, that I don't have to forgive, don't even have to move past it, but that maybe just hearing him out would stop the questions from clawing at the back of my mind forever. I understand that logic, but I also understand trauma, and reopening old wounds for the sake of maybe finding peace isn't always worth the blood. There's this idea one people love to cling to, that because I gave birth to Aiden, I owe him unconditional acceptance. That no matter how long he's ignored me or how many times he's chosen someone else, I should open my arms the moment he remembers I exist. But the truth is, not everyone deserves access to your heart just because they share your DNA. That's something I've had to learn the hard way. I read a comment from someone who reminded me that I'm allowed to hesitate, that being cautious doesn't make me cruel, it makes me human. The people in my life now, the ones who truly care about me, they've helped me rebuild what was broken. I'm in a good place, as good as I can be. Letting Aiden back in might not bring comfort, it might just bring another collapse. Someone else wrote that Aiden is still the boy who once traded his mother for gifts and popularity. And maybe that's true. Maybe even now, after 10 years, he still sees the world through that shallow lens. I'm older now. He hasn't seen me in a decade. I have wrinkles I didn't have then, and I live in a quiet house near the woods instead of a mansion with marble floors. I'm not glamorous. I'm not rich. I'm just me, and I wonder if he'll see that as a disappointment. Another commenter said something that's been stuck in my head. They believed Darren must have spent years poisoning Aiden against me. And maybe they're right. Maybe Aiden was fed lies until they became his truth. Maybe this message is his attempt to find out what really happened. But even if that's the case, I still have to protect myself. Because even if the reasons change, the pain still feels the same. There was one perspective that hit a nerve, a person who said they had once been in Aiden's shoes, that as a child they had been used as emotional collateral, forced to carry secrets too heavy for their age. They said it twisted their perception of everything until they were adults. I don't know what Darren told Aiden. I don't know what kind of reality he grew up believing. But I do know that children see what they're shown. And if he was told I was weak or bitter or wrong, then maybe that's what stuck. And then there was this. Ask him why now. That's what another person suggested. Just ask him what's changed after all these years. Why reach out now? Why now when the damage has already been done? I've spent so many nights trying to stitch myself back together. Do I really want to risk unraveling again? I'm afraid. That's the truth. I'm afraid he'll come into my life and then vanish again when he doesn't get what he wants. I'm afraid my daughters will watch me fall apart. I'm afraid I'll give him more than I can afford, emotionally, financially, and end up hollow again. Everyone keeps saying I should follow my heart. But my heart has scars, and those scars remember what it felt like to be left behind. So maybe I'll wait. Maybe I'll tell him I need more time. Or maybe I won't answer at all. There's a part of me that wanted to believe Aiden's message meant something real. That maybe after all these years, something in his heart had shifted. That maybe he saw me, not the version Darren painted, not the quiet woman he left behind in a 2-bedroom apartment, but his mother. But the truth never waits long to show its face. I remember checking his social media 5 years ago. I hadn't looked in a while. Every post used to hurt like a small cut. But that time, something pulled me back. I still remember the photo. Him and Carla, his stepmother, laughing at what looked like some holiday brunch. The caption read, "To the best mom in the world." That one sentence felt like a knife. It was like I'd never existed. There wasn't a single mention of me anywhere, not a memory, not a word. I was a ghost in his digital life, completely erased. People asked me later if I had done something, if I'd badmouthed him or Darren, if I'd made Aiden choose. But I hadn't. I never tried to poison his view of his father, even after all the betrayal. I never forced him to visit. I gave him space because I thought he needed it. But all that space just became distance, and that distance became silence. So when he finally reached out, part of me wanted to hope. And yet, the larger part of me was afraid. Afraid he'd smile, say the right things, and then vanish again. That he'd rip open old wounds with no intention of staying. I couldn't bear to be discarded twice. Still, I agreed to meet. So many people had urged me to. I chose a quiet park on the edge of town. Michael came too, staying far enough away to give us space but close enough in case I needed him. I didn't know what I'd say or what he'd say. I just knew I had to protect what was left of me. Aiden arrived 5 minutes after I did, taller than I remembered. His hair was shorter, his face more angular, but his eyes were the same. Familiar, yet distant. He said hello. I smiled and told him he looked well. He just nodded. We sat on the bench. The silence between us stretched like a tightrope. Eventually, I asked how he'd been. He told me he'd finished college and was preparing to apply to law school. I said that was wonderful. Another pause. Longer this time. I waited, and then he finally spoke. "You must be wondering why I contacted you." I nodded. "It's been 10 years, Aiden. You told me you didn't want me in your life, that I embarrassed you. So, yes, I've been wondering." His face grew serious. "I know that, but I need something." The air left my lungs. He didn't come to reconnect. He didn't come to heal. He came for money. He said he needed $20,000 for law school, that Darren couldn't afford it anymore. He lost everything in a business collapse. The company was gone, and now, with 3 more children from Carla, they didn't have the resources to help him anymore. My heart sank. After all this time, after all those years wondering if he'd ever care, this was what it came down to. I told him gently that I couldn't give him that kind of money. It was too much. He frowned, then his voice changed. "Is this about Dad's affair? Seriously, Mom, when are you going to let that go?" "Let that go?" I stared at him, stunned. "Why do you hate me, Aiden?" My voice broke. "What did I ever do to deserve this? I never yelled at you. I never laid a hand on you. I loved you more than anything. So why have you spent your whole life pushing me away?" He took a breath, exhaled slow. "You don't get it. You really expected me to go with you? You had nothing, Mom. Dad gave me the life I wanted. My friends liked Carla. Everything was good until you ruined it by finding out about the affair. I looked at him, but I didn't recognize him. You think that was the best thing for any of us? Darren, cheating, lying? You think I wanted to lose everything? He looked away. I don't want to talk about that. Of course he didn't, because that would mean acknowledging that I was a person, that my pain was real, that what happened mattered. And in that moment, I knew. I hadn't just lost my son to distance or time. I'd lost him to values that never included me. When I asked Aiden why he had never come to see me, not once in 10 years, he looked at me like I was asking something absurd. I pressed gently, wanting to know if Darren had kept him away, or if Carla had poisoned his mind. Or maybe it was something I'd done without realizing. I told him I'd reached out many times, birthdays, holidays, even random Wednesdays when I missed him so much it hurt. I left voicemails, I sent messages, but he never responded. Eventually, I stopped. I gave him space, assuming he was just coping with the aftermath of the divorce. Instead, he snapped. "You were annoying," he said flatly. "Dad didn't stop me. I didn't want to see you. You lived in that tiny, depressing apartment with barely 2 bedrooms. I hated it there." He rolled his eyes. "You embarrassed me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. When he turned 18, I sent him a gift. It wasn't much, just a box of his favorite cookies, chocolate peanut butter, the kind I used to bake when he was a child, and a vintage watch that had belonged to my grandfather. It was all I could afford at the time. Michael and I were barely getting by, and every penny went toward food, rent, and taking care of our newborn daughter. But I wanted Aiden to feel remembered, loved. He didn't even acknowledge it. He told me, bluntly, that the gift was cheap and stale, that he didn't bother replying because he knew Darren would buy him something better, and probably did. That was the moment something inside me went still. I told him no. No, I wouldn't give him the money. Not because I was punishing him, not out of spite, but because I'd spent a decade wondering if he was safe, if he was happy. I'd replayed memories until they bled, wondering what I could have done differently. And here he was, still treating me like an afterthought, a source of cash, not love. Throughout our entire conversation, he never once asked how I'd been. Never asked about my life, about his sister, about anything that wasn't him. I had shown up hoping for some kind of peace, closure maybe. I didn't expect a miracle, but I also didn't expect to feel this invisible. He kept pushing, getting louder. "You're ruining my life," he said. "You owe me this." Owe him? "I can't trust you, Aiden," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You disappeared for 10 years, and now you want $20,000. How can I believe this isn't just about money?" He laughed bitterly. "Cut the crap, Mom. You've got money now. I saw the photos. You and that guy, what's his name, Michael? You're fine. You just don't want to help me." I told him no, again and again. Each time, my voice shook more. Then he stood up in the middle of the park and shouted that I'd ruined his life, that I was a selfish woman who'd always held him back, that he owed him for giving birth to him. I called Michael. He had been watching from a distance, just in case. He hurried over when he saw Aiden towering over me, red-faced and furious. Michael stepped between us, gently but firmly, and Aiden backed off. I went home and cried until my throat ached. I know now that I should have trusted my instincts. My gut told me something was off the moment I saw his name pop up in my inbox. I wanted to believe he had changed, that time had softened him, that maybe, just maybe, we could start again. But I was wrong. He hadn't come to heal, he came to take. Some of you might call me a bad mother. You'll say I'm cold, that I should have helped him, that I should have been grateful he reached out at all. But I've spent years in therapy trying to survive the loss of my marriage, the betrayal of my husband, and the slow erasure of my son. I cannot open my door to someone who only sees me as a bank account. Even if I gave him the money, there's no guarantee he wouldn't vanish again. And when it runs out, he might come back, expecting more. I may be able to forgive him one day for what he said, but I won't forget it. I hated you because you were poor, he told me. That sentence lives in my chest like a weight. I would have been happy with something small, a visit once in a while, a call on my birthday, a photo of him smiling. But he never offered any of that. And then there was one final blow. During our conversation, he let it slip. He'd been the first to know Darren was cheating, and he'd asked for a brand new phone in exchange for his silence. I lost. I lost everything. My husband, my son, my dignity. That's all there is to say. And still, it hurts knowing my daughters will grow up never knowing their brother. I've read through every comment people left, some kind, some sharp, most somewhere in between. One that stuck with me said something simple. You should have trusted your instincts. And they're right. I should have. From the moment I saw Aiden's message in my inbox, my heart tightened, as if it already knew what was coming. I didn't listen. I wanted to believe in the possibility of change. But deep down, I knew better. Yes, I have more money than I did 10 years ago. Michael and I worked hard for a modest but comfortable life. But $20,000? That's not pocket change. That's savings, security. It's college for my daughter one day, a roof over our heads, an emergency cushion. And I knew the moment Aiden asked that he didn't see it that way. To him, it was just money I had that he didn't. Money I owed. There's a kind of clarity that comes after heartbreak. Some people said they would have taken the meeting too, not necessarily for hope, but for truth, to see who he'd become, to finally stop wondering. And I understand that. Sometimes closure isn't about mending anything. Sometimes it's just about seeing the reality for what it is and deciding firmly that you're done. That's what the park meeting gave me. I saw Aiden not as the boy I raised, but as the man he became. And that man didn't ask how I was. He didn't ask about his half-sisters. He didn't seem to carry even a fragment of guilt or longing. He came with a purpose, and when that purpose was denied, he unraveled. He showed me that whatever version of a mother he had in his head was not one he wanted to embrace unless she came with a check. The hardest part isn't the yelling. It isn't even the accusations or how quickly he turned cold. It's the knowing. Knowing that he hasn't grown. That the little boy who once traded his silence for a new phone is now a man demanding thousands with the same detached sense of entitlement. That realization, more than his words, broke something permanent inside me. And now I live with it. I know there are people who will say I should have done more, given more, tried harder, that I'm his mother, and that role demands unconditional love and sacrifice. But I've sacrificed enough. I sacrificed my peace for years wondering what I did wrong. I sacrificed pieces of myself rebuilding a life from the rubble Darren left behind. I lay awake too many nights praying that one day Aiden would remember who I was. And when he did, he remembered me as a source, not a person. Even now, I wonder if I'll ever be able to stop grieving. It's not just the loss of him, it's the death of the dream I clung to. That someday he'd walk through my door, not for help, not for money, but simply because he missed me, because he remembered something warm, something real. But he didn't. I left that meeting in pieces, and Michael held me for hours as I wept. Not because Aiden shouted or blamed me, but because I finally knew, that he was gone long before he walked away. And that realization, painful as it is, set me free. I'll always carry the ache. I'll always wish things had turned out differently. But I won't sacrifice myself to feed the version of love Aiden believes in. He can keep the life he chose. I have a new one now. It may not be perfect, it may still hurt, but it's honest, and that has to be enough. I hope, wherever he goes, he finds what he's looking for. I truly do. But I'm no longer the place he can come to take and take until there's nothing left of me. I deserve more than that. My daughters deserve more than that. And maybe, just maybe, that truth, though heavy, will help me heal. I don't think I meant to lash out the way I did, but grief and frustration have a way of building up in silence until they crack through all at once. My friend Claire and I have known each other since college, over 30 years of birthdays, heartbreaks, and late-night phone calls. We've been through so much together, but lately I feel like I'm invisible when I'm with her. She's 5 months pregnant now, her second child, her whole world. And I get that. It's a beautiful thing. I've tried to be supportive. I've gone with her to doctor appointments when her husband couldn't. I've listened to the updates, the kicks, the cravings, the aches. I even helped decorate the nursery. But last week I had a rough day. I'd been thinking about Aiden again, about everything that happened, about how quiet it still is without him. I was emotionally raw, but we already had dinner plans. I invited her over, ordered food, and hoped we could just talk like we used to, about anything else. But 10 minutes in, she was back on the baby, her back pain, the little onesie she bought, and something in me broke. I told her I didn't want to hear every single detail, that maybe, just for once, we could talk about something else. She stared at me like I'd slapped her, called me cold, a bad friend. Then she left. Now she's not answering my texts, and I'm sitting here wondering if maybe I really am the problem, or if maybe I just needed a friend too. In real life, even the closest relationships can fracture when empathy breaks down. Evelyn's situation reflects how unresolved grief and emotional fatigue can cause tension to boil over, especially when one person dominates the emotional space in a friendship. If you're in a friendship where your voice feels lost, it's okay to speak up. Healthy friendships require mutual space, where each person's struggles, joys, and silence are respected. If you're the one going through something big, like pregnancy, illness, or career change, try to remember that your friend might be quietly struggling too. Ask how they're doing. Listen. And if you're the one feeling unseen, know that it's not selfish to ask for room. Sometimes telling someone you're hurting is an act of trust, not weakness. Communication, even when hard, is the only way to salvage a fading bond. But if the other person still doesn't listen, it's okay to step back. Emotional exhaustion is real, and while forgiveness is healing, protecting your peace is necessary too. You deserve friendships that hold space for both your joy and your sorrow.